Hey everyone, it's Andrew from the Wyoming Dinosaur Center, and this is Fossil Friday. You might have not noticed, but I look a little different from last week's episodes. I decided to do a few things to sharpen my look a little bit. For instance, I'm wearing a slightly different colored t-shirt this time, and I have this marvelous beard. It's authentically mine. I grew it all 100%. Now, some people might think this is a little excessive, but you know, a lot of people like the look of a rugged beard on a guy like me. You can't see my chiseled jaw anymore, but sometimes you just gotta spice up your appearance. Sometimes, just for the sake of looking good, we go to pretty extreme measures, like growing something like this. Which brings us to the topic of our Fossil Friday, one of the most bizarre dinosaurs that ever lived, the Stegosaurus. Excuse me. Stegosaurus is a really bizarre creature, and one of the things that adds to that level of just insanity with dinosaurs are the plates on the back. You know, these puzzled scientists for over a century. Even now, we're still debating what exactly these plates would have been used for. And I'm going to present a couple of theories, even though this debate is still ongoing. But we think we've come to a likely conclusion, which I'll share in a second. These plates are very large and very narrow, covering the back of this animal. So when they first found Stegosaurus, they weren't really sure what to make of them. One scientist actually thought the plates covered the back like a turtle shell, flat, covering a nice coat of armor. In fact, all of the original theories for what Stegosaurus plates were served for were serving for defense, to defend the animal. But that doesn't make a lot of sense. Let's take a closer look with today's subject for Fossil Friday. Now this is a real Stegosaurus plate from one of the sites that we work at, the famous Como Bluff, Wyoming. That's where the sauropod skull was found that we had from an earlier episode. So you can see it's a nice big hunk of bone. It's not cartilage like a lot of other things. It's not fused together hair like you see in things like rhinos. This is solid bone. And the thing that's really bizarre about it is when I flip it on its side, it's extremely narrow, extremely narrow. Now, there's a common misconception that this is exactly what the plate would have looked like. When the animal was alive, it would have been covered with a sheath of material called keratin. Keratin is the same stuff that your fingernails are made out of. And we know that because when we study the surface of these plates, we see lots of narrow grooves running along those surfaces. Those are where the blood vessels would have been, which tells us that a lot of blood would have been thrust into these plates. It's just like our fingernails require a lot of blood. If you ever cut your fingernail, it's not a very pretty sight. But anyway, so lots of blood being flown into these plates to keep that keratin healthy and secure on the animal's back. So when you get a really big blood supply, plus with how narrow these plates are, this is not really a good thing for defense. In fact, since they were covering the back of the animal, we now know that they were running along the spine in a nice alternating pattern. The only attack that's going to defend you from is a predator dive bombing you from the top. Not a really good defense strategy. So what were these plates used for then? Well, a lot of people thought they might have been used for temperature regulation. You face your plates towards the sun to warm up in the morning and away from the sun to cool down in the afternoon. That's a likely idea. But then we started to think a bit more about why an animal would develop such an unnecessary, high-maintenance structure on their bodies. And think of other structures that you see in nature. The antelope, or deer and antelope with horns. You see, peacocks with large feathers covering their bodies and that tail. Large, ornate structures that seemingly serve no purpose except one: to look good. Same reason that I have this beard, which is itchy and getting hair in my mouth. Developing these structures is likely for display, both to attract mates, maybe to intimidate rivals, but that's the primary purpose, just to look good and official. So it's hard to say how good this Stegosaurus would have looked with these plates. There's a whole fascinating story behind this Stegosaurus, but we'll have to save that for another time. So I guess what I'm meaning to say is sometimes we go to really extreme lengths to make ourselves look more attractive or look better for everybody else, whether it's giant plates covering our back or an obscene amount of facial hair, which is actually just bison fur that I found in town. So got a lot of hair in my mouth. Well, hope you enjoyed this edition of Fossil Friday. Remember to like, comment, and share. We'll see you back here next week with another fascinating fossil. So until then, I'm Andrew from the Wyoming Dinosaur Center, keeping your Friday fossiliferous.